Okay, so let's talk about Strymon delays. If you've been around this channel, you know about the criminally underrated Brigadier, their D-bucket analog style delay. Obviously, we have the Dig, the stereo digital delay with some great modulation. One of my recent favorites and kind of a secret weapon of mine of late is the Volante. They're kind of all-encompassing tape rack style delay and looper. And then, man, around here somewhere. Man, I can't seem to find mine, but the Capistan is what I feel like is the most popular delay that Strymon has released. I don't know, Jack, you can let me know if that's actually true, but it's sort of become kind of the gold standard in digital emulation of tape echo and stereo form with multi-head options and a lot of other fun features. You know it, you probably love it. So today, Strymon's releasing a sibling of the Cap. It's the EC-1. It's a single head dTape echo that draws a ton of obvious inspiration and sound and feature set from the Capistan. And let's just break this down a little bit and talk about this line that they've kind of introduced as of late, talk about the EC-1 specifically, and do a little compare and contrast with what you get in the Capistan version 2 and this new EC-1. So what is Strymon doing with these compact line of pedals? I think there's a few different reasons just on the surface from my perspective of why they'd release these pedals. And I think that kind of plays into who the target audience is and why these might or might not be the pedals for you. First off, they've really done a good job at making these streamlined and compact. They have thoughtfully designed the enclosures and the layout to kind of maximize feature set and control and functionality in about as small of an enclosure as I could imagine. They've done that in a few ways. One is by keeping all the jacks on the top side here, which is awesome. It's sort of a breath of fresh air for folks that are keeping their boards tidy and kind of maximizing space there. They utilize TRS ins and outs, so you can run stereo in and out with just one cable. You also have this really useful toggle on top to select the signal routing mode that you want, whether it be mono in, mono out, mono to stereo out, or stereo in, stereo out. Then they've tucked a little USB jack on the top here too for any firmware updates or utilizing their apps or other integration to manage controls and presets and things. You also have a third jack here that allows for expression in a few different ways or MIDI. And so you preserve this compact form factor by keeping all your ins and outs on the top of the pedal here. They've also included their JFET input stage into these pedals, which is kind of a big improvement in the version 2 line of the 2-button pedals. So you get that same input section in these pedals and you get the same ARM processing power. And you really get, in my opinion, all the sounds and the tones and the quality and the complexity of these algorithms in the small pedals. So this isn't going to be a sound sample comparison. I truthfully just don't really get that much satisfaction out of pitting two things next to each other that sound 99% the same. So you'll hear some sounds throughout this video to kind of give you a flavor of some of the different settings you can run this pedal in. But truly, these pedals sound fantastic. They continue to be kind of the best sounding emulations of these classic delay effects, in my opinion, and the EC-1 is no exception here. Maybe the biggest reason for this line of pedals, in my opinion, is the price point. So this pedal is $279 new, and it comes in at $100 less than the version 2 2-button version of the Capistan. So it really kind of allows you to get into some of those sounds and textures and flavors in the Strymon ecosystem for a little bit a more affordable price tag. And again, you have a more compact pedal that you can kind of stick anywhere or include in a large board if you're just wanting a little more simplified version of some great sounding tape echo. I wanted to talk a little bit about what I like about these compact versions and what I miss about them. And so one of the main things that I really like about this line is that it does maximize the control set and the functionality of a pedal in a small package. It's kind of more of a what you see is what you get layout and control set and interface, which I really like. I don't really love a lot of the secondary functions because for me, I end up forgetting what they are and then not even utilizing them a lot of times. And so with this, you really kind of can just lean on those controls on the face of the pedal and dial in the sounds that you're looking for, not having to worry about remembering the secondary functions to tweak and fine tune it. Some people might see that as a weakness or a limitation, but for me, I think that is sort of refreshing and it's really kind of a strength of these compact lines. Again, I think a lot of folks that are in the market for a pedal will be more attracted to the $279 price point at this point for what I think is kind of an industry-leading sound and sound quality. That's another strength of this compact line, in my opinion. And then again, just the size and the form factor. You could fit 3 of these pedals in the width of, say, the Volante, and so you can really kind of include some of those Strymon tones on your board without taking up a ton of real estate. So I like what they've done with that. Some of the things I miss about them, I've mentioned in previous videos. For me, I get a lot of use and mileage out of the tap tempo foot switch to either just tap in the tempo for songs, but primarily to engage that runaway oscillation feature. It's a really cool sound. It's really useful for transitions and different elements of like ambient sounding parts. And so I really miss that on the face of these smaller pedals. I know there's a choice that has to be made when you're using the middle foot switch for both the bypass and for tap tempo. And I think that is smart, but it just is another point for me of these pedals where I really do kind of find myself wanting to choose those 2-button pedals for the functionality of that second foot switch. It's not a huge deal for me, but what you do miss with this pedal, and some people might find that as a drawback, is the spring reverb circuit. You truly just get a single head tape echo in this with some really great features to be able to create those unique kind of textured repeats that you'd get from a tape echo, but you don't get a spring reverb circuit. You also don't get any of the multi-head modes that the Capistan features, and you don't get the sound on sound looping mode either. So if those are a draw to you, if those are things that you utilize or are kind of interested in or are appealing to you, you'd probably want to check into the LCAP version 2 over this pedal here. If you're really just looking for an awesome sounding stereo tape echo, then the EC-1 is a fantastic option and it won't take up a ton of room on your board. Before we dive into some sound samples, I'm going to briefly go over some of the control set nuances that the EC-1 features. They're going to be a little bit different than the LCAP, but I again think that Strymon did a really nice job with this. They kind of limited or omitted certain features and functions in favor of others, or made the choices they did, and I think a pretty solid way. So we're going to talk about that quickly here. You've got time and your mix control for your delay. In the center bottom, you've got your repeats. And then you have your kind of texture or character controls on the left and right. You've got tape age, which kind of sweeps from a full bandwidth, clean, new, fresh tape to that kind of worn out, shrunken bandwidth tape sound in an older, degraded tape age there. And then the mechanics kind of give you that ability to, again, wear out or distress some of the mechanics of the virtual tape machine and give you that kind of warble, that kind of modulation sound. That I think is really cool and sounds great. You can use that as its own kind of effect, even with the delay turned down or off, or you can kind of introduce that on your delay repeats. And then in the middle, they've decided to set the record level as a toggle switch. So we're kind of borrowing or mashing up a few different controls or features from both the Volante and the LCAP here, in my opinion. But the record level lets you go from low, medium to high. So you've got the ability to kind of boost your record level there with the second 2 toggles to give some more saturation and some more just kind of push into those delay repeats. These controls, again, do differ a little bit from the Capistan, but you still get the control over the nature and the nuance and the character of the tape echo machine. and you also get a little bit of control of that record level to give you added saturation or push there, along with the three mix, repeats, and delay time controls that you'd expect. If you go into tap tempo mode by holding that foot switch down, changing the time knob allows you to pick from one of 4 different subdivisions. So that's another nice feature to allow you to be able to tap in 8th note, dotted 8th note, that kind of thing into your repeats with tap tempo. All right, let's dive into some sounds here with the rig I was using in the intro sketch. We're going to show some of my favorite uses and sounds from the EC-1. We're going to be running a 29 pedals Una into an Origin Effects Cali 76 compressor, onto a Brown Amps Carbon X, then onto the EC-1. We're running it in mono here onto a Strymon Big Sky MX, and then back to my Matchless 3015. That amp's been a favorite of mine in the recent months here because it's a fairly clean amp that just allows you to send pedals into it and kind of create your own texture and character. And so we can kind of lean into the EC-1 to give some of that warmth and tape texture and saturation on its own. So it's set fairly clean and a little bit on the brighter side. It's sort of a voxy circuit. And we're going to run that onto our UA aux box to capture the speaker and cab emulations there. I'm going to be using a Fano GF6. It has Lawler Regal wide range pickups, and let's check out some of the sounds.